You'd have to be loco not to know about Alpha Draft, the premier fantasy esports service. So if you're liquid, then take some of that cash, put it into contests, and play for fun or to win more money. You can even play for free, kind of like when someone plays TSM in the LCS. If you want to have an impact on the tables and you can come away with some of that sick, sweet, sweet Skrilla, you're sure to be feeling that energy. Now, we can't all take first place, but we can all have fun playing. Now, on the recent Summoning Insight, episode 67, which I will link up there, we have a discussion where we make the playoff predictions for the NA LCS. And when it comes to the matchup of Liquid versus NRG, Liquid the number 4 seed, NRG the number 5 seed, so the closest pairing in the first round, I predicted that NRG will win the series, but in reflection upon seeing how people commented on that, I don't think I articulated very well the actual reasons why, because guess what? It's a 3-hour talk show. We don't think up in advance what we're going to say. We just say things at the time, and things are taken. It's also very difficult, by the way, when you talk to other people at other times to remember what you've told them, what you've said on air. So I'll articulate it in more length in this video, which is why I titled it, Why NRG Will Beat Team Liquid. Now, first and foremost, I did say on the episode, and this is still what I think is the case, that I think this will be the closest series. I mean, it should be by seeding anyway, but I think this will be a very close series. I actually think there's a very good chance this will go 5 games, so whoever wins will be 3-2. And I think even if it doesn't go 5 games, if it's a 3-1 or even a 3-0, I think this can be 3 very close games or 4 very close games. I did pick NRG to win, but I picked them to win 3-2. Now, my reasoning that I said on the show was fairly simplistic. I mean, it's mainly not about me and my opinions, by the way. I'm there to prompt other people to say their opinions. But my basic reason I said on the show was that I think NRG overall have the better players. So let's examine what I mean by that. First of all, I don't mean that they have better players as in position by position they're better than the counterpart on Team Liquid. It's certainly not the case. I also don't mean that they are better at all positions. Now, what I actually want to say in general is that I don't suggest that the NRG players as a collective have performed better than the Team Liquid players over the split. I think when you look at the whole split, you could edge some of those kind of judgments over to Team Liquid because they certainly ended the split much better, and NRG was more like they had single games which were really good, but overall their split was quite underwhelming. I mean, when I say that they have better players, that I think actually my evaluation of them outside of just form is that there are better players on NRG than Team Liquid, which is going to be significant when we consider the playoffs and the series play, because that's something different from regular season play. So let's look at the two teams. If you take the 3 best players of each team, so we try and identify the stars, and these are the 3 best players of each of the 2 teams, I would say the 3 best players from NRG, I think, is easy to pick. I would say the best player is GBM, then I have Impact, and then I have Alltech. These are their 3 best players in my reckoning. On Team Liquid, I think the best player is clearly Piglet. I think after that, you've got to say Dardoch in terms of the impact and how good he's been. And then the third one's debatable because I know some people are going to make a case for Matt, but I would actually say the third one is probably quite clear to me that it's Phoenix. I would still say Phoenix. So when you compare these threesomes, these trios, personally, I'm going to take the one from NRG as the 3 better players in terms of overall players, skill set, what they do actually do in the game. Now, the key concept that you want to think about here that I'm analyzing game from is the rookie principle. So most rookies do not perform as well in their first playoffs as they do in the regular split. Not only that, most rookies don't perform in their first LCS games as they do once regular season's gone on and once it's gone. As you saw with this team, they improved over the split, got their rookies integrated in the team, and then became better by the end of the split. So we think of some of the teams who surprised us in regular splits in the past, like Team Liquid has now, and did well, but then didn't do as well in the playoffs as you might have imagined based on their regular season form. So an obvious one last split, summer season of 2015, season 5, would be Gravity. They were actually leading the league for a while, and then in the playoffs, out in the first round. You think of spring split of last year, so 1 year prior. TIP, Team Impulse, when Rush was carrying, Impact was a beast back then, they had Zhao Wei Zhao. Okay, they made it to the semi-finals. Then they played against TSM, and what happened? Rush had been a candidate for MVP. He was that good as a rookie player in LCS-type format, And the guy disappeared completely in that series. He picked champions that didn't make sense for him. He picked Nunu instead of the strong, aggressive, warrior-type junglers we're used to him playing. And he tried to make plays on it. Didn't even seem to understand the concept of the Nunu quite that much in that series, even though Nunu at the time was a meta pick for the more tanky junglers. And as a result, he had no impact on this series, and the team was not able to beat TSM. And they didn't play the way they had in the regular split, where he would go off and he would carry the whole series. And we saw he had to learn, and over future playoffs, he was much better. And by the regional playoffs, he was going off in a bunch of those games, even though they didn't end up qualifying for Worlds. So the problem for Team Liquid I see when I make the 3-man cores like this of the best players on the team to consider the best overall aspect, like I'm saying, of the quality of the players, is that remember, the 3 players for NRG I'm picking is GBM, Impact, Altec. These are all veterans now. Even Altec has played a number of splits, a number of playoffs, a number of series. GBM and Impact. GBM has played many series thanks to playing in Korea and their LCK format where they had best of 3. And Impact has been to Worlds, has won 2 OGN titles, has had phenomenal amount of series play and tenure in his career. So the difference is those players are known quantities. If I look at the best 3 from Team Liquid, I mean, I'm not including Matt as in one of my best 3, but I am including Dardoch, and he is very important to Team Liquid's tempo and how good their chances to win the game are because of the impact he has in terms of his jungling and the aggressive plays we see him making. So in this world, yes, we know Piglet's fantastic and is a veteran. Phoenix is a veteran in the sense that Altec is, but not someone who's played tons of series. So it's similar to Altec there. The problem is, if you're comparing Dardoch and Impact, or Dardoch to any of the other players I've listed, GBM, etc., his level of experience is way less. He is a rookie. And so as a result, when you come into the playoffs, I can't just take Dardoch and say, oh, he's definitely going to play the same way he did in the regular split, and oh, I know how he's going to play in a series, and how he's going to play in the LCS playoffs. He's never played in one before. He is a total rookie. So the difference is I've got a known quantity on NRG's side, and I've got an unknown quantity on the Team Liquid side. You can't just take it for granted that he's going to play like that overall. He's played well in some games in the split so far. That's it. So that's my biggest problem for Team Liquid is one of their stars who has to be very good is a rookie, and we still don't know how he'll play in the playoffs. Will he tilt if he loses a key game? Will he be able to adapt to people banning around him or changing up what they do game to game if they have success early? Will he be nervous? Will he just mess up some plays? Will he just mess up some mechanics just because it's his first time under the really big lights in the real pressure games that matter the most? Also, you look at the players position by position. Okay, so on NRG, Impact, the top laner against Lolo. Now, I'm obviously going to take Impact on this one. Yeah, Impact's had a bit of an underwhelming season, considering he was definitely a candidate for best top laner in the West last year. But you look at him this season, yeah, he's had some fairly underwhelming games, and some of his picks were a bit off. But Lolo's been the most questionable player on Team Liquid. I think he's someone who's got a lot of... He starts to do a lot of work to show me he's a good player. He hasn't had many good games, even in the games they've won, in my opinion. Because the games they've won have been like Dardoch, they've been like Piglet, the odd Phoenix game. Matt's like had some good games on Janna, and then it's been mainly as they've improved their actual like map rotations and getting some decent synergy and shot calling going. It hasn't been... Like, Lolo's never really had particularly good games, in my opinion. So Impact over Lolo, even Impact's decayed state, I think it's a pretty done deal. That one's fine. Dardoch, obviously, is a better player than Moon, but even there's still a case for me. Like, yes, Dardoch has been very good in certain games. That's why he's actually a highly touted rising talent, and I certainly buy into that. It looks fantastic so far. He'd certainly be on my shortlist of very good players who have the potential to be a veteran one day and a very good player and have accomplished a lot. But right now, still haven't seen him play in a top situation. Haven't seen Moon either. Moon has been very much more up and down. He's had a few good games towards the end of the split. Obviously, he had that great game against Team Liquid. But aside from that, the big problem here is the big difference between Dardoch and Moon at the moment isn't going to necessarily mean as much in the playoffs because both are unproven in the playoff setting. And also, you have to factor in at the moment, all the teams that are smart are just abusing the fuck out of lane swaps. So lane swaps are almost certain to happen in the series. And if lane swaps happen, is it going to be as big of a deal that players like Dardoch and Moon make these crazy lane plays to try and get their team ahead in the game and try to get their lanes rolling? Probably not. It's probably not going to be as much happening. Not least because, I mean, there's only going to be mid lane to potentially gank, isn't there? So I think that's going to neutralize some of the impact, some of the difference between Dardoch and Moon to a degree. Also, there's the fact that, like I say, since we don't know what they'll play like in the playoffs, if Dardoch chokes and Moon just does okay, it might not even matter in that sense anyway. Now, you come in the mid lane, GBM and Phoenix. For me, GBM is much better than Phoenix. I don't blame GBM for a whole lot of the losses at NRG. I still think he's played pretty well, and that unfortunately for him, his jungler's had issues. His team isn't very good overall in terms of like a team identity and versus all the teams in the NA LCS. Picks are a little bit off for some of the other players. Certainly not for GBM. He's a fantastic player still. Phoenix has been decent in the regular season, had good games, but Phoenix has always been weaker in playoff situations. Like, you have to realize Phoenix has played in 6 LCS type playoff situations, in 6 series rather. He's only won 3 of those series, so he's won half of them. You might think, well, that's all right, winning half of them. No. 2 of them were third place deciders. Now, third place deciders will never mean as much as a game where you're still live to potentially win the tournament and progress to the final. They'll never be as important, they'll never matter as much, and that's why not very few people care about them. So 2 of his 3 wins are in those games that don't matter as much, and they were both against Tip. And one of them, by the way, was when Tip had, if I remember correctly, wasn't one when Tip had like Gate because Zhao was banned? So the one series he's won that's like a legit LCS playoff series type scenario was the infamous series against the CLG that had Link on it that choked their tits off and just did terrible plays and didn't make any sense how it was so dominant by Liquid. That's his best playoff series career. So he's always been weaker in the playoffs for me, partly because he can often get banned out. Then you've got to look at the fact that the current situation right now is going to be so tempting for him to potentially fuck up the game just by his picks. Like, people are playing Azir again. We saw BDD playing it and had a good game on it. So we know Phoenix is the one-trick pony on Azir. He's going to want to play Azir. Is he going to pick Azir? If he does, I think that's going to be a terrible situation for them. So that temptation alone is making me worried about how Phoenix can perform. And I think he's already a worse player than GBM. Then you consider, at the moment, Phoenix is just playing Corki. Okay, that's it. That can be a strong pick. That can be abused. But outside of Corki, he's just playing supportive shit. He's playing Lulu. He's playing Lux. He's not going to be a star player in this series. Then you go to the AD carry position. Okay, yes, Piglet is much better than Altec. I think Piglet's the best player on both teams right now. If I had to look at best player, best form, best overall impact on the game, he's the best player on both teams right now. But people have oversold how bad Altec is now. At the moment, he's just middle of the pack, AD carry. He's just okay. He's not as good as he was in past seasons. He doesn't have as good a support player. Obviously, Bunny Fufu is a better support player and fit him much better. But he's still all right. He's not terrible. He can still be okay. And we at least know from his history, he's probably not going to choke in the playoffs. He's probably going to play all right in the playoffs, as he did on Gravity, as he did in the teams. It wasn't his fault that they got bodied by TSM last split when he was on Gravity. Now, in terms of Matt and Quan, okay, yes, I will give Matt the advantage over Quan. I think he's a better player. First of all, he has largely been getting his wins on Janna. So, okay, he's been a good Janna, but I want to see what happens in the playoffs. Will that be contested? Quan and Matt, both essentially rookies in terms of going into an LCS playoff situation. So, again, that advantage can be neutralized there. So, 2 of the big advantages for the guys from Team Liquid are rookie-to-rookie positions where both players could choke, both players could just play average. The whole advantage could be neutralized. One player could choke from Team Liquid and neutralize the advantage. Their only big advantage is essentially Piglet over Altec. Altec's probably going to play all right, and all the other advantages are veterans for NRG over players like Impact Lolo is pretty much a done deal, and GBM over Phoenix, history tells us that will be the case. So I liking the player matchup in terms of over NRG. I feel like it's more reliable. Now, yeah, against the field, Team Liquid was better, not just because they won one more game, but if you look at all the games overall, I think they had more good games and more losses that were like close games where they were playing well and maybe through, or like when they played TSM, etc. With that said, this is the playoffs. It's not about being against the field. It doesn't matter how well they beat up Echo Fox and how well they beat up Tip and how well they beat up CLG, because they're not playing CLG, they're playing NRG. So now what we have to ask is, what happens when NRG plays Liquid? Well, first of all, it happened in week 8, not that long ago. NRG played Liquid. It was the one where Moon had this huge game on Elise. Dardox Lee Sin, unfortunately, wasn't as clean as he likes it to be. GBM picked out Zed, bodied the shit out the game, was fantastic. So here's the thing. Phoenix has tried Zed this split. Will Phoenix try to pick Zed away? What about Azir? Will he leave Azir up and let GBM pick it? There's all sorts of questions going on here. The problem I see, mainly, is that GBM's champion pool can cause Phoenix a lot of problems. GBM has all these pocket picks. Phoenix is just relying on the meta at the moment. GBM, he can pull out his Zillion, he can pull out Karma, he can pull out all kinds of weird shit. He can pull out anything that Phoenix wants to play, by the way. Azir, Zed, any of that shit. So that's the big question when you're Phoenix is, do you take away strong picks? In which case he'll just go with pocket picks for GBM. Do you take away the pocket picks? In which case GBM will just pick meta picks and take meta picks away from you, and you have a limited playing champion pool, as we've always seen from Phoenix. There's a lot of questions and a lot of problems that GBM can cause in a series that in a best of one maybe wouldn't be the case always. I give the shot calling edge to Team Liquid. I think that's where their biggest advantage comes from. But again, that's in the regular season. With nerves added in as an extra factor, that's where the shot calling has to be very good under pressure. I don't think we've really seen that much pressure so far. Experience obviously goes over to NRG. They have a couple of rookies, but not at the key positions, and they have way more experience at the key positions than you do on Team Liquid side, except Piglet. Piglet's the only player who can compare to the others in terms of experience. Then you got to look at reliability of performance from the stars. As I said, goes over to NRG. Impact and GBM, so many series in their careers, way more series than someone like Phoenix has played his entire career. One advantage I will give Team Liquid as an extra thing is I think coaching, I'll give them overall. I think Loco's a better coach than Hermit. I think Loco's shown more in his career. I think Loco has a good history of being able to adapt in series. So that's also why I think it's going to be a close series. Because even if NRG starts up 2-0 or 2-1, I think Team Liquid can come back in the series and they have the pieces where they don't have to go off 1 or 2 games to get it to 5 games. But I'm overall going with the reliability of players like GBM and Impact. And overall, I think the GBM is going to have cause Phoenix big problems. I'm not so sure about the rookies yet. I want Dardoch to become a good player, but I don't know if he's ready to take the mantle yet. I'm really unsure about Matt. I also don't know about Moon and Quan, but it doesn't necessarily matter as much, I think, for the guys from NRG. So I'm taking NRG to win the series overall, and there's my more expanded reason why.